Born in Flint, Michigan. I went to First Presbyterian Church in Flint, Michigan, from as early as I can remember till about late high school. Don't recall going to church much other than being a creaster in high school. Joined the military, and I was gone from the church for a long time. I got out of the military and went to college and met a woman and fell in love and married her, and thought it was important to raise kids in the church because I instantly became a stepdad. And we started attending a Presbyterian church in Daytona. I actually married down there. Graduated college, went to my first job out of college, and that was a small airline in Maine. Couldn't find a Presbyterian church up there. It was very uncommon in Maine at that point, so we went to a Methodist church. Finished that job, moved to New Hampshire, and did the same thing there. Found a small Methodist church and went there. Again, went to Sunday school, went to service, but it was just never really a big part of my life. It was more just something that everybody did, so I did it too. Moved from New Hampshire to Atlanta to work for Delta. That was the pinnacle of my career. And we found a small country church that I found to be home. I just absolutely love this church. It was Whitesburg United Methodist, little bitty red brick church in Whitesburg, and spent the next 20 years essentially in the Methodist church. There were several pastors that pastored the church while I was there, but one in particular, Tommy Holder, and I became really close friends. I was hungry for God at that point. I don't think I realized it at the time, but I was desperately hungry. And the more stupid questions I asked, the more he answered. And it got to be, he worked for the state. He was a bivocational pastor. So he would travel from his house in Noonan to whatever job site he was going to. He worked for the Department of Juvenile Corrections. So he would go to different prisons, youth prisons, and train the guards. That was his responsibility. So while he was driving, and I was driving because I worked in Atlanta, we talked every morning. And I would pose these just crazy questions about God. And it was that friendship that transformed God from this old guy with a white beard up there about to smite me because I knew that I was doing wrong to, hey, maybe it's not that after all. And it just kind of grew a little bit at a time, over time to, I want this. While working for Delta, that's where alcoholism came in. I became a raging alcoholic. Also learned about pornography. I had already learned about it a long time ago, but that's when it became really a big thing in my life. So here I was living this dual life, working midnights, feeling just awful because I didn't sleep, drank alcohol to try to help myself sleep, and had a horrible relationship with my wife, so that's why pornography was an issue there. Got to a point in our marriage where she said, okay, you either fix all this stuff or we're done. And it was actually a yellow legal pad and all these things that were wrong with me. And I took it really seriously, not because I valued what she had to say, but because it was right. And I actually became saved because I went on something called the Walk to Emmaus. It was my first true, extended, face-to-face confrontation with Christ. I remember that night. I'll never forget that night. I was 38 years old, and it was this little bitty country chapel. There was all these guys in there, and I finally found Jesus. And it just kind of all came together that night, and I finally said, all right, I'm yours. Let's do this. That's when real life began, and that list that I was given started ticking them off one by one. Christ overcame alcoholism in me. I went cold turkey and just never touched a drop. I've been clean and sober for almost 17 years. I would say the same thing with pornography, been clean and sober from that addiction as well. Somewhere along in that lines, I felt God say, hey, you should probably come preach the word at my church. So I accepted the opportunity to start preaching underneath of my pastor in my home church. And people seemed to respond. It was an incredible experience. And I really felt this is where God was leading me. So I took a job at Cornerstone United Methodist Church in Noonan, and I was the associate pastor. And it was great. I absolutely loved it. I loved the people. I loved sharing God's word that was inside of me with them. You could see it light up in them, and what an incredible feeling to have God using you, and you see it right in front of you. So when the opportunity came to pastor my own church, I did. I took that opportunity, and I pastored Turin United Methodist Church for 4 years, and that was just incredible. There were some things about the Methodist Church that I disagreed with, but on a daily basis, that wasn't an issue with the people. They loved me and I loved them. It was the most memorable experience of a job, I would say. I mean, it was something that I received a paycheck from, but it wasn't a job. It was just pure joy to serve in that capacity. But as those things that I disagreed with became more and more, it became obvious that I didn't belong anymore. I've always felt when you can't abide by the leadership placed over top of you, it's time to go. And I left my beloved church, not only the church that I pastored, but the church that I loved for 20 years. That was a huge part of my life. And it hurt, but I knew it was right. At that time, I had found this awesome woman to love. Her name was Susan, and we were married, and I was a step-parent to her children. And it didn't seem right to me to ask them to move to another church. They were deeply rooted in Southern Hills, and that just seemed like the right place. When the time came, I preached my last sermon at Turin, and the next Sunday I was at Southern Hills. And I want to say it was a great experience, but it wasn't. It was really traumatic, and I didn't want to be there. I was mad at God for taking away from me something that I loved. And it showed in my behavior. But over time and taking the Equip to Counsel class and conversations with Ron Boswell, conversations with Heath, and it's just been an amazing experience learning what I thought I already knew, but I didn't. And I just came to a place that some of the religious ideas that I thought were important are no longer important. They don't matter. And one of those was baptism. I'm one of those that was baptized as an infant, so obviously I don't remember it at all. And I had struggled for the longest time. Every single time I saw someone at Southern Hills go up to that baptismal, it's just a really weird ball of emotions for me around baptism. Because when I was saved, I wanted to be baptized really bad. And the Methodist Church said, no, you cannot be rebaptized. And I was devastated at the time, but I thought I got over it, but I really didn't. And it was just kind of a spontaneous conversation. I asked Shannon, I said, what do you think about all this? And so he gave me the nutshell answer, what the Christian church believes. And he said, you can do what you want with that. That's your decision. And I said, you know what, the heck with this, let's just do it. And at that point, I'm done. I don't care anymore. I don't care about church tradition or what another man tries to tell me, because to the best of my knowledge, it doesn't say in the Bible, thou shalt only get baptized once. So we made the arrangements, and Shannon dunked me, and it was a cool day. It brought a lot of things together. Jesus to me is the guy that reached down into the mud and picked up this worthless piece of trash and said, I know everything that you've done, and I still love you. That is the most humbling thing to experience when you know what you've done. I know the lives that I've damaged. I know the people that don't know Christ because of me, my own 2 sons. I remember the look on my son's face when he was deeply ashamed of me when he saw me drunk. And Jesus says, I know all of that stuff about you, and you're still my son, And I want to hang out with you. I want to be with you. I want to talk with you. I want to sing with you. I just want to be with you. And nothing you have ever done, nothing you could ever say to me is ever going to change that. And when I finally believed the real truth of that, he became a living, breathing person. And I know Jesus is no longer a human being on earth anymore, but to me he is. He's with me every day. In the truck, when I'm riding along, when I'm with the guys at work that I struggle because they curse so much. He's the center of my life.